Hello, good evening. Welcome to the next part of our series, the fourth session of the whole 20 sessions. This time around, we'll be looking at Python control flow. Prior to this time, we've covered the basic understanding of data science, AI, and data analysis. In the second part of the series, we're able to look at Python installation. How do we get it installed into our various computers? And in this third part of the series, we considered the basic syntax in Python. We touched on variables, data types, and some minor examples along that line. We explored 5 different practical examples in the workplace. For this particular session, we shall be looking at control flow. We'll be looking at situations where there are conditions and how to handle them. We'll look at the first part of it, which is if else. That is, if something happens, what should the system do? If that thing does not happen, what do we expect the system to do? That is the else now. We'll look at nested and elif conditions. Nested has to do with if something happens and within that if statement, there's another condition inside it that if another thing happens, if it rains tomorrow and the whole place, if the road is flooded, that's the kind of condition we're looking at for nested. You have an if statement within another if statement. Then we'll look at loops, a situation whereby we expect the system to perform the same operation over and over, but taking different values of a variable. Then under that, we are going to look at for loop. That means when something when there is a condition before an iteration. I'm going to look at while loop. We're going to look at break and continue. That is when a system gets into a loop. How do we execute a break statement? How do we execute a continue statement? Then we consider functions overview. When a function is used, we are going to look at returning values from them, and we'll crown it up with 5 business examples for learners at all levels. Every of our sessions will be accompanied by 5 business examples. Now let's get cracking. In this part specifically, we want to see how decisions are made within the code. How do we expect the system to take some steps? What are the things that we expect the system to look for before taking those steps? So we need to understand within the code what happens to conditional statements, and that is talking about if else statements. Then we look at loops. Again, I mentioned them, but I'm just trying to be specific now. When we talk of loops, we are talking about for and the while loop. The big difference between them is that one has a condition before the action, the other one has a condition after the action, after considering the iteration. So I'm going to look at those two cases and we'll finalize it with functions. How do we put our code together to form a function so that instead of writing myriads of codes, we find ourselves writing few functions. to take care of those executions. By the end of the session, uh, you all will be equipped to create logical, repeatable processes in your Python scripts, laying the foundation for more complex data analysis tasks ahead. So, let's get down to the practical side of things. I'm going to be explaining all this using Jupyter Notebook. So please come with me. Here is our folder on the desktop. Now let's get into it. Click at the top here, type CMD, enter. It gets you this. Then type Jupyter Notebook. For those of you that are new to this, you may have to watch the second video in the series and perhaps the third one. Notebook. So this launches your Jupyter Notebooks, and from there we'll start coding. Just a few more minutes. Okay, cool. Now we're there. This was the notebook that was used for session 3. Okay, let me just rename it. I'll call this session 3, session 3 of session 3 of 20, session 3 of 20. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not supposed to use session 3 of 20. Yeah. Okay, now for this session I'll be opening another one. Go to new notebook. So the first step, let's give the file a name. This is session 4 of 20. Python control flow. That's it at the top here. Okay, now let's get down to business. Now the first thing we want to do is to consider if else statement. So I'm going to give this title, I'm going to give this a title also here. So I'll make it a markdown and give it a title, data science mastery. Session mastery 4 of 20. Python control flow. Okay, so let's have this here to make it so big. Yeah. Okay, now looking at the first one now, which is if else, let me make another small title. If else, if else statement. I'm going to use markdown here also because I'm not running any code. I just want to give it a title. If else statement. Let's call this, let's have 1 2 3. Let's do 1. If else statements. Okay, cool. Now, the first thing that we need to understand here is the syntax. It's key. If we understand the syntax, it becomes easier to learn. So I'm going to type here syntax. The syntax is if, then your condition. That's the syntax. What is? That is the syntax. When you don't have an else and all those kind of thing, then you know. So let me comment that out. Now, when if else is used in your code, it helps to make decisions based on conditions. If the condition is true, one block of code runs. Otherwise, the other block of code executes. And that is the otherwise part is the one that is else. Now let's take some examples. There's maybe an example of this. Um, can we consider? Do we do 2 examples? Yeah, let's take two examples just to see how it works. Now, let's take the first one. If I have, okay, if I have x, if I have a number x, a variable x greater than 10, what do I expect the system to do? The moment you press the enter key after the semicolon, after the colon, it gives you a kind of indent. This is fine. That's how it's supposed to be. Print. We are familiar with print now. Print x is greater than 10. This is one way. If my x is greater than 10, what happens if my x is not greater than 10? That is else. So when you are typing your else must be in line with if. Else. Colon again. Enter. Print. X is not greater than 10. Or we can say s is less than or equal to 10. So if I run this, yeah, we are going to end up with this. Do you know why? Because we have not defined our x. So what I'm going to do is at the top here, let me take this one up and say my x is equal to 9. Let me first define my x there. That's done. So if I run this now, because my x is less than 10, I expect this result. So let's run this. That's it. X is less than 10. Less than or equal to 10. Now if I change this to 13, see the response. To 13. else is greater than 10. That is the way it works. Now, the question is, what happens to some other values? If, for example, let's take another example. Let's take the temperature as an example. If temperature is less than 0, enter, print. It's freezing. Else, print it's above freezing point. Let's have temperature at the top. Let's define temperature. Let's move this up a bit. Let's define temperature here. Temperature equals 1 degrees. 1. So if I run this and I run this, okay, yeah, I misspelled this one. So if I run this, that's it. It's above freezing point because it does not meet this condition, so it meets only the else part of the condition. So please, we need to understand the fact that if else let your code make decisions based on the condition. If the condition is true, just like in this case, if temperature is less than 0, then something happens, which is this. Otherwise, this happens. That's it. Now let's look at the next one. Number 2. One, two, three. Number 2. Nested and elif conditions. Mark down. Now in this case, I need us to understand that there is no much difference between what we did and last one. The big difference is that we have a lot of if. Instead of having one if, you have more than one. But in this case, we call the first if. We use if for the first one. Any other if that is inside or that is inside, we use elif for it. Now let's take an example. But before then, I want us to take note of the following. For elif, I want for elif for this guy, elif elif means you add more conditions. That's the meaning. Next, nested if. Nested if means conditions within conditions. So let's take note of that. Now let's take two other examples on this one. Um, let my k equals 13. Okay, if k is greater than 13, if k is greater than, let's use 11. If k is greater than 11, print k is greater than 11. Now, k can have three different values. K can be greater than 11, can be less than 11, can be equal to 11. So we have more than two conditions, and that's why we're going to use elif here. Now, if I will now, instead of saying, because after this one, we'll have a situation whereby k is equal to 11. So I'm going to use elif there. Elif k, the equality sign here is double equal sign. Please take note. Equal to 11. Print k is equal to 11. Now the last option, I will now use else. Else print k is less than 11. That's the answer, because our k is 13, so it's obviously greater. Now let's take on another example. In a school, the grade, the examination grades grades in the school, they go from A to F. You score A if you have if your score is 90 or above. You score B if you have 80, between 80 and 90, and you score C between 70 and 80, and otherwise is F. So how do we handle this scenario? It's simple. When doing this, you start from the highest level and you take it down. So in this case, the highest level is 90. Anything above 90 is A. So I'll say if A, if grade, let's use grade. If grade is greater than or equal to 90, what do we want the system to do? Print A. Print A. Because we still have B, C, and F. So that means we have a lot of conditions internally. So we are going to use elif. Elif grade is greater than 80. Print B. Elif again. Elif grade is greater than 70. Print C. then the last one, so that's going to be else. Else printf. So let's take this up and call this grade. Grade. So let's assume the grade is 73. Let's run that. Let's run this. That's C. Let's have a grade of 60. That's F. Let's have a grade of 89. That's B. A grade of 95. That's A. Now let's move to the next one. There's loops. Now let me call this 3. Loops. Let me make it a markdown. Let me call that introduction to loops. Now the purpose of a loop is this. Let's do purpose. The purpose of a loop is repeat a block of code multiple times. Just when something changes, you run it again. Then types. We have for loop, and we have while loop. Markdown. So we have for loop, we have while loop. Now we're going to consider them one after the other. We're going to look at the for loop, then we'll come back and consider the while loop. For loop. In this case, the item is iterable. So let's have an example. For I, let's x equals okay, let's do something. Now for for x in range 5, what do we want the system to do? Print I, print x. What this simply means, okay, let me just type print numbers 1 through 5. Write Python code to print numbers 1 through 5. Yeah, this is it here. For x in range 5, print x. That means you print the first one, go back, print the next one, go back, print the other one. So they'll be printed vertically. That's it. Now, what you have printed now refers to five numbers, 0 to 4. I need us to understand that. There are five numbers here, 0 to 4. The first one is 0, the next one is 1, and so on and so forth. So, let's note that if you want to print numbers up to, say, 6, then you make this to be 7. Make this to be 7, then you have 0 to 6. So, our example is this. So maybe I should change, this is numbers 1 to 5. Or maybe so that I don't mislead you guys, let me say number from 0 to 4. Yeah, this makes more sense. Okay, so let's take another example. This time around I have fruits. Fruits equals, we have apple, we have banana, we have cherry. We want to print them one after the other. So what I'm going to do is to say, I can still use my x. For k in fruits, for k inside here, this is the same thing as this. Put a colon here, print k. The system will print them one after the other. That's it. Now if you look at this case, the value x and the value k, they are iterable. They are iterable. Now let's go to the other one, which is while loop. While loop. While loop. Now in this case, it's so funny that the way the condition is here is a bit different from the way it is in the other side. Let's say here I'm using, let's say, count equal to 0. That means I have a series of numbers. The initial value is 0. That means there is nothing. Now while, okay, I will not use count, let me just use x. While x is less than 5. Can you see the difference between this and this now? While x is less than 5, I want to print the same thing, this one here and this one. While x is less than 5, you will see the difference now. I want the system to print x. Oh, sorry. Print x. Now after you have printed the first x, go back and pick the next one, and that will now be x plus plus, or x Let's do x minus equals 1. You will find this in some books, and in some other books it's written in another way. Now let's see what happens here. Can you see that? I did minus. I just want you to see. Now I want to do, you can see that it's still running. It will run endlessly. I want to do plus. So I'm going to stop it. So you can stop with this one. Can use this guy to stop it. Um, and when you find out that it has refused to stop, first use this to stop. If it refuses to stop, you know what you do? Just click on this guy here, kernel. Click on the kernel and say restart the kernel. Restart kernel. You have a choice when you want to restart it. You can say clear all outputs. You can say restart it and run all outputs, but it will run the set that you don't want it to run. So I'm going to restart the kernel. Okay, see, it has even restarted. Okay, so it got broken. That's fine. Now what I want to do is this one here. I need us to understand it very well. Let me do x equals x plus 1. Now what we are saying now is this: the first element is 0. When you have picked 0, come here, print 0. When you have printed 0, go to the next position. This is position 1. Go to the next position here. You now have 2. The position of 2 is 1. Print 1. Go to the next one again. Keep adding to it. And that gives you a position. That's it. To run the 0 to 1 line, which is the same thing as what we had here. Now, another way of writing this is this. You can do x plus, you can do this. X plus equal to 1. It's the same thing. It's the same result. The next one. Now we have a number m equals to 10. But what I want to print is I want to use minus instead of plus, like we did before. So what I'm going to do is m equals to 10, while my m is greater than 10, is greater than 0. Print m. And you have printed m minus equal to 1, just like we had plus equal to 1 here. This is x equals to x plus 1. This is m equals m minus 1. So if I run this now, remember you have placed a condition here, m greater than 0. So this will keep running from 10 to 9, from 10 to 1. So let's see. That's it. Now, how do we break some loops? Let's call that Let's call that loop control. We want to break and we want to continue. Break and continue. Break means stop. Continue means resume. That's the difference. Now let's take this example. For x in range 10, if x is equal to 5, break. When you break, print x. What are we saying here? We have numbers between 0 and 9. Remember we did this. Numbers between 0 and 9. When you pick, when you traverse through the numbers, when you get to 5, stop. That's the meaning. So let's see. Okay, it's not printing because this is supposed to be under the if. Directly under the if. Yeah. When you get to 5, break. Don't even continue. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. Now, let's do something else again. For I in range 10. Don't forget range 10 is numbers 0 to 9. For I in range 10, if I modulo 2, that means if I is divided by 2 and the remainder is 0, continue. Print I. What do you want to print? We want to print only the even numbers. Numbers that are divisible by 2. When you start from I from 0 to 9, when you get to a number whereby when 2 divides it, the remainder is 0. Print. That's the meaning. That's what we want to print. You have 0, 1, 2 to 9. If you have the number divisible by 2 without a rubber, that means if it is even, continue. Continue means leave that one and continue. Okay. Now talking about functions. We're still going to devote some good time to discuss functions properly. This is just like an intro. Functions overview. There are some special functions that we're going to deal with at some point. So when we get to that water, we'll cross it. Now, talking about functions. What functions are used for is to absorb or encapsulate codes. So in other words, the purpose of functions to encapsulate code into reusable blocks. Then the syntax. Def function name. Then give it your parameters. Those are the things, those things that the functions are dependent upon. Parameters. When you define your functions that way, they're good. So this is markdown. Now let's take some examples. Let's take maybe one or two examples. Def greet name. I have defined a function. What do I want the function to do? That's the next line. Print. The function name is greet and the parameter is name. That means you need to give the function a name. Then what do you want it to do with the name? That's the next line. F hello comma, that's it. So in other words, if you are to run this, oh sorry, the parameter, that's the function. Now if I want to run this down, I'll say def I don't need to call there, sorry, greet Oladimeji. Yeah, because I didn't define it. That's the name. So let me do let me define it at the top here. Name equals Oladimeji. Sorry, I didn't quote it because it's a string. Yeah. Okay, so even this one should work. All I need to do is, if I had quoted this, it should work. That's it. So even if I don't put name there, let's see. Great. Because Oladimeji is a string, so I'll quote it. That's it. So it works whichever way you decide to. Great Alice. That's it. Now let's take on another function. Def square. I just want to find the square of any number. So I'll call the number num. Now what's the formula? Return. The formula is num square. That's it. So if I now say square, if I call the square now, square of num can be anything, 4. I expect 16. That's it. Square of 9. I expect 81. This is the way calculators were produced. So that gives the overview of the areas we plan to cover under Python control. Now we are going to take our examples, 5 business case examples. 5 business case examples. The first example will be, we want a situation where um, I'm just trying to think of how best to give us these. I want to think of 5 examples to use on this matter. Now, the first example that we need to consider would be um, calculation of employee bonus. Yeah, we can start with that. That's that's the way. Calculation of employee bonus is one thing. Then we have other examples that we're going to deal with tonight, which should give us a better explanation to everything that we decide to do. Now, the first thing we want to do is we have a scenario. So this is practical scenarios. Let me make this practical scenarios. Right, so now this is the most important part of the whole session. But taking 5, like I mentioned, 5 scenarios for every session. Now, for this scenario, we want to look at automating customer segmentation in marketing. Let's make this, let's make it, do we make it bold? Let's make it a bit bigger. Then let's make it marked down. Okay. Now under that, we have our scenario. The scenario is I should have taken this guy out. So we have a scenario. Now the scenario here, a marketing team wants to segment customers based on their purchase history. They classify customers as high value, medium value, and low value, or low value. Based on their total spending. How do we implement this in Python? This is an if else condition. If, elif, then else condition, because we have three scenarios. So we need to note that. Now let's crack on. Now in order to do this, I'll be joining I'll be using a function because we want something that we can use for any customer when the head of department or somebody else comes to say, oh, can we get this? You just calculate it immediately without the need to start writing the code from the beginning. So what we're going to do is that we have some customers with their spending limits, their total spending given. So let's see, um, the total spent for five customers, five customers are um, uh, 1200, 750, 300. Let's do dollars. Yeah, but we all know it's dollars, so let me not disturb myself about that. 300, 1500, 200 for customers CUST1, CUST2, CUST3, CUST4, and CUST5 are this, and this respectively. Now, how do we implement this in terms of segmentation? Now, the first thing we need to do is, instead of writing the code to work for only this one, we can make the code to be generic so that any other customer that the company brings will fit into it. So I'll be using it. That's the reason why we need a function. So I'll be using a function here. I'll first define a function that will do the segmentation. These five belong to, each of them belong to one of these three groups. So now I want us to note the fact that the company has not defined any value as high, medium, or low. But Python, uh, okay, yeah, the company has definition for that, but we can work around them. So we have, let me put that here. We have any any customer with spend above 1000 is classified as high value. Above 500 is medium value. Is medium value. So that means the last set is low value. Now we need to answer this question, we have to use if function. We'll place all the if statements inside the functions so that it's the function that we call from time to time. Now let's go. Let's define a function called segment customer. That's the name of the function. And what we are giving to the function is what? The total spent. And what we are saying is that the total if total spent if total spent if total spent is greater than 1000, what do we want the system to do? Return high value. Now your elif must be under if. Please take note of that. Elif and if. Elif total spent is greater than 500. Return medium value. Else return low value. That is the function. So for each of these people now, let's apply the function to these 5 people. I'll say I first put the customers spent. Customers spend equals, let's put everything here, 1200 750 300. Before this, the formulas are with us ready. Now if I want to do them one by one, I'll just copy this. Just call segment customer. Total spent is how much? 1200 for the first one, high value. If I do the second one, 750, medium value. If I do the fourth one, 1500, high value. That's it. But I don't want to be doing it one after the other since I have a list of customers. So all I can do is I'll put all of them together and say, okay, for the customers, let's say, let me just call them customers, then put all the money here, 1200, then what again, 750, I think 300, one five zero zero 200. So if you have 10 customers, you can put them that way. That works. Now you can now come down here and say for total in, you can even use X, you must not use total. For X in customers. Let me just call it customer spend to make it a bit explicit. Spend. For X in customer spend, print the name of the function now. This function the customer spend. Those are the figures. Run. Oh, sorry. X is inside customer spend. That's X. Yeah, that's it. So the first one here is high. This is medium. This is low. This is high. And this is low. Scenario 2. Inventory management and reordering system. Now the scenario, let's form another scenario here. Let's have a retail store needs to automate its inventory management system. To reorder products when stock level falls, when stock levels fall below a certain threshold. How do we implement this? There's a threshold that must be met. So I need to use markdown. Okay. Now how do we implement this? So that when it gets to a particular level, when the stock gets to a particular level, the system reorders. This is an if-else situation. That is, if the current stock is less than the reorder threshold, then print something. Else, print something. It's as simple as that. So let's try an example here also. To print something. Okay, so let's go first. Now let's define a function. Check inventory. So that's the one I'll be checking the values. You can use any name. It must not be a particular name. It can be any name. Now, check inventory will be looking at the product name. That's the product. To be looking for the current stock. to be looking for the reorder threshold. If the current stock, that's this one, is less than the threshold, reorder threshold, then the system should print our normal F. The system should print reorder. Remember, the current stock is less than the threshold, so you have to the product. So print the product involved. Print product. That's the product name. Then continue to print current stock is, now let the system pick the value, is current stock. Else print F product stock is sufficient. So now let's take this is the function done. Now let's take a particular scenario whereby we have product name and their levels have been defined. So let's assume let's have consider the stock values levels of apples, bananas, and maybe oranges are respectively 20, 10, no, let's do 5, and 13. Given that the reorder level, reorder threshold is 10, write the Python code to give a position of the stock of those items. So what I will now do is this products. I'll put them together. I want to answer that question. The later part now, products equals let's put all of them here. I'll be explaining why braces later at some point. So apples 20, bananas are how many? 5. Then oranges. Oranges are 13 number. Cool. Remember our threshold is 10. Cool. Yeah, so we've defined our product. Now I want to say for x do we use x or just use product? Product, because product is inside here and the stock is there also. These two are there. So for product and for stock in this dot item, that means each of this is an item. Dot item, what do we want the system to do? Check. We are going to call this function check inventory. Check inventory. Products, current stock is what? Threshold is 10. Current stock is stock. Then product is product. Cool. So if we run this now, let's see what happened. Check inventory. Oh, sorry. Just to call the name. Okay, yeah, this is fine. Item, no attribute item, as items. That's it. So for apple stock is sufficient. Reorder banana, the current stock is 5, so there's need to reorder banana. Orange is fine. Cool. The next example, the next scenario 3. Calculating employee bonuses. Calculating employee bonuses. Scenario. A company wants to calculate end of year bonuses for its employees based on performance ratings. Develop, write a function, write a Python function to do this. apply the function to the three staff John, Jane, and John, Jane, and Jude with salaries 50,000, 60,000, and 45,000. And ratings 4 points, respective ratings with respective salaries and this is and respective ratings 4.7, 3.9, 3.2. Good. Scenario. Okay, so now to do this, the first thing is to write out the functions, then write out the employees, then we solve the second part. So I'm going to define a function called calculate bonus, which will be dependent on salary because those are the two things they want to use, salary and rating, to give bonus. Okay, if rating is greater than or equal to 4.5, return salary 0.2. This is 20% bonus. This should be 0.2. 20% bonus. Elif rating greater than or equal to 3.5. Let me just copy this. This is 10% bonus. Then the last one, else return salary times 0.05. This is 5%. So we are done with the function. It's ready just for us to apply it. Now we have employees. Those for 3 employees. So let me put them together. Employees equal to I'm going to put them in a list. Let me use this so that I can line them up. The first one name. The name for the first one is John. John. And the salary is 50,000. Rating is 4.7. So I'm done with John. So I just copy this guy and paste for the next person. The second one is Jane. The salary is 60,000 and the rating is 3.5. Then the last one is Jude. The salary is 45 and the rating is 3.2. So I have defined the employees. Now I want to apply the functions, this function calculate bonus, to the employees, the three employees scenarios. So for emp in employees, bonus equal to calculate, just carry the function, calculate bonus. What is the salary? Go to each of this is emp. This is emp, this is emp, this is emp. So go to emp, pick salary, and go to the same emp and pick rating. Okay, print. Print our normal function, emp name, and you print the name. Let's have this employee this receives a bonus of the calculated value bonus. That's it. Scenario 4, dynamic pricing strategy. Four. So in this case, they also have a scenario similar to the earlier case. scenario an e-commerce company adjusts the prices of products based on demand. If a product is in demand, is in high demand, its price increases. If demand is low, the price decreases. So we want a function that can be used for this scenario. Now we have three items. Also, their prices have been given and their demands have been given. Given that we have various demand levels, so for this case, I'll just go straight into the implementation. Again, I'm defining a function adjust price based on what? The current price and demand level. So my function is defined. Now if demand level is greater than 80, return current price times 1.2. That's increased by 20%. Now the next one is going to be elif demand level less than 50, return current price times 0.2, 0.2, 0.8. This is price reduction by 20%. Else return current price. That means no change. That's the function. Now let us apply the function to something of this nature. Let me just copy this to use. Let's apply for some items. So this is the name of the item. Let's go to that is the laptop. price, let this be the price, and let this be demand. Demand is 85. Then the next one is phone. Let the price be this 6,000. Let the rating be 45. I mean the demand. The next one is tablet. The price is 9,000 and the rating is 60. The demand is 60. So this is products. Now let's now apply the function to give us the position for these ones. So I'll be using the same thing. There's no difference. It's just to change the variables, that's all. I'll change my function. This is my function here. This is price and this is demand. This is product. Let's do prod in products. That's inside here. Then calculating new price. This is prod and this is prod. This is prod. Yeah, this is new price. That's it. Now the last exercise, the last scenario, scenario 5, fraud detection in transactions. Now the scenario now. A financial institution needs to flag transactions as potentially fraudulent based on certain criteria such as the amount and location of the transaction. So in this case, I just go ahead and write the function same way. Define your function, detect fraud. That's the name of the function. And dependent on transaction amount, also dependent on transaction location, and user location. Because you cannot be in the US and be doing transactions in Great Britain pound. Cannot be in Nigeria and conduct transactions in Great Britain pound. So we've defined the function. Let's flesh it up. If transaction amount is greater than 10,000, return flagged. High transaction amount. Elif transaction amount is not in user location. It's not the same. If the transaction location, is not user location, then it should be flagged. Return flagged. Flagged location mismatch. Else return transaction is normal. That's it. That is the function. Now we can quickly apply this function to a particular scenario. So let's have a scenario where we have some transactions equal to let me just copy this guy. Transactions, so this is amount, let's say 1500, 15,000. Transaction location, let's have New York. Then user location, let's have New York. So another transaction, this is 5,000, is in California, and this guy is in New York. This is another one. This one is 2,000. The transaction is in New York, and this guy is in New York. Cool. So let's have this classifying it is the same code here. So I'll just do tran. For tran, can be anything for tran and transactions. Results equals, so this so this is amount. So let's do tran tran okay, then the last one also tran yeah. So with that, print results. I just want results this time around. What is that? Greater than is not supported. Where is it? Where we have flagged. Let's replace this guy. Greater than not supported between instances of string and integer. Okay, so yeah, seeing these as strings. So they are supposed to be integers, float rather. So okay, so we have if transaction result detect fraud. Tran, okay, that's okay, that's fine. Let's see transaction amount, location. hmm Yeah, transaction amount here is 15,000. It's not supported. Oh, okay, yeah, I missed this question. So I'll rather take these guys down because I missed it. So what I'm going to do is rather remove this scenario. Put that as part of the next scenario. Um, so let me change this guy. Okay, so I change it to this guy. Yeah, so we're good. Okay, so um, now we have somehow been able to complete all this. So far, we've talked about if else, loops, and functions. We've taken some examples. We've taken the first four questions, I mean scenarios. Our next step will be on data structure. Join me in the next section titled Data Structure in Python. This will be the last part of this next session. Is will be the last part of basic Python for everyone. After that run, they will not start Python for data analysts. See you in the next session.